What's key is to make sure that this isn't a trend. This is actually a strong movement until we're not having these conversations about diversity anymore. And I'm, as a Black kind of co-founder and a leader in the industry, I'm not being asked to go to a talk or talk about diversity and stuff. I'm actually being asked to talk because of the work we've done at Vault 49, what we've achieved, the brands we work for. I know the role I need to play as a Black founder and a Black leader in the industry. But I can't wait to that moment that I'm being invited to a conference or invited to judge on awards for the merit of the work I've done and not because of the color of my skin.
Packaging design should seduce, inform, and even save the planet. I'm Hernan BRANDERMAN, and this is BRANDERMAN, the podcast where I talk with experts to uncover what it actually takes to make a positive impact on consumers, the market, and society. Warning: keep this podcast out of the reach of close-minded marketers and designers. Before the interview, let me introduce my design agency.
Brands with purpose. Human, agile, honest brands that leave no one indifferent. Tridimage creates and revitalizes brands to imagine and shape the future. Tridimage, the branding and packaging design agency for bold brands.
Today I had the pleasure to speak with John Glasgow and Jonathan Kenyon, co-founders of Vault 49. After meeting at London College of Printing in the early 2000s, John and Jonathan founded Vault 49. Initially an internationally renowned street art partnership, Vault 49 has evolved into a holistic 360 brand experience and package design agency. John and Jonathan have retained the street art heritage and passion for crafting, and are now dedicated to leading Vault 49 New York City and London studios to deliver actionable brand strategy and bold creative solutions that disrupt everyday experiences, transforming brands and businesses. In this episode, we discuss the blurred line between art and design while exploring the mindset behind street art and its impact on Vault 49's unique approach to packaging design projects. We also explore steps agencies and brands can take to create a more diverse and inclusive workplace. Today with me, John Glasgow and Jonathan Kenyon. Each of us is a container of ideas, projects, and dreams. However, we can't read the label when we are inside the jar. What do you think your label says, or what would you like it to say?
This is an interesting question. I think I'm going to go with the cheeky chap. I'm always trying to find moments of joy in the day. I'm always trying to bring a smile to someone's face, bring a laughter to the team as well. As this is an icebreaker question, I find sometimes at the start of the day or in a meeting before we get on with clients, it just calms the mood, calms the room, any anxiety around, even for myself. When I meet clients for the first time, I'm on a Zoom call, I'm in a room, I'm always searching for a moment to add a little playfulness, add a little bit of joy, to just break the ice with the clients. Just so it gives them a hint at our culture. So I'm always looking for that cheeky moment to add a bit of smile to whether it's the internal team or our client's face.
Great. And you, Jonathan?
So I believe in myth and magic. And I believe that all of life's lessons and the nature of human purpose can be found hiding in myths and fairy tales. And so one of my favorite fairy tales is a simple one from childhood, which is Jack and the Beanstalk. Jack placed faith in this unknown future and he took a risk on magic. He went to the market, he traded in his family's only possession, which was a cow, and he traded it in for 3 magic beans. I really identify with this. I like Jack. I like the unknown. I like an adventure, and I like to take leaps of faith. Like Jack, I trust that my journey is upwards, I trust that it is going somewhere fascinating and rewarding. That's a long-winded way to say that the label on my packaging would simply say magic beans.
Great. Building a brand is like a journey. It starts with defining where we are and asking ourselves where we want to go. What was the path that led you from being a printmaker and street artist to becoming founders of a leading global brand experience and packaging design agency?
We actually met, as you mentioned, in the printmaking rooms over 20 years ago back at college in London. We were sat next to each other on screen printing beds, started to admire each other's projects. So we decided to think about collaborating on that project. And that was the birth of our relationship and our duo. And that came to life through street art. You know, we were in the print rooms as well, printing large pieces of our designs and our illustrations. Our screen prints were taking over all of the space throughout those rooms as well. We would print them onto newsprint. And then during the night, we would go around, get kitted up, try to look like professional flight posters as well. Like we were an actual company going around putting these posters up. And we'd go around the streets of London, just taking over some of the walls. And it was partly naive, partly strategic as well. We did it for the love of it, purely for the passion. But we also strategically chose places which had design companies and design magazine companies and stuff. And our lucky break came one night when we had stopped off at a chip shop about 3 a.m. We needed to refuel. So as British lads, we got some fish and chips. And directly next to that chip shop was a derelict looking building. So we did what we did. We covered it from floor to ceiling with all of our designs, covered the windows, covered the doors, and rocked up the next day and just saw how people interact with it. But it just so happens that derelict building was actually Dazed and Confused's headquarters. So if you don't know Dazed and Confused, it's a huge lifestyle magazine. They wanted to meet the artists who were brave enough to put their work and cover their building. So they invited us into their space. And long story short is what we did on the outside of the building, they asked us to do on the inside of the building. And that was pretty much the spark and the birth of Vault 49. We started to get our initial commissions, and we were still students at this point. The work started flowing in, and that street art soon became an expression that we were using on brands. But less of a packaging in the beginning, it was more from a comms point of view. So we were getting commissioned to do interior spaces for retail stores, album covers for EMI Records, for example. And then those commissions soon became commissions out of the US. And then we found ourselves maybe a year after graduating, half a bedroom in the back end of Peckham, relocating to Lower East Side in Manhattan, and then seeking walls in Manhattan and doing a similar thing to build our name out of the US as well. So that was our origins and how we got into design. And it very much came through the process of craft and screen printing. We started off as pretty much street artists and then got pulled into the world of design through the kind of unique look and feel and illustrations and typography that we were creating way back when as well.
Wow. And how did your passion for package design begin?
For me, it really exploded in what would have been like the late 80s and early 90s, because back in the UK, that was the heyday of there was rave culture and acid house, and they would produce all of these fantastically creative flyers for club nights. And I was way too young back then to be going out clubbing. But my best friend's older brother would come back from these late nights out with all these wild stories of what took place and have these stacks and stacks of cool flyers that he'd give to me. And these would be like club nights at places like the Hacienda and Cream and Hard Times. And I'd cover every inch of my bedroom walls with these flyers. They were an escape. They were a reminder that there was this really big, exciting world outside there that was waiting for me. And I would copy and imitate these flyers night after night. And then I create these imaginary ones for my own club nights and these venues that didn't exist. And my first love of packaging was creating these custom cases for everything that I owned. I designed the cassette inserts for all of my mixtapes. And then when I got to working with Joe, everything that we did would involve some beautiful packaging. So we were creating these screen prints, these posters, these art installations, and everything that we did would be in this custom designed case with the right materials and the prints. Everything and every aspect of something was delivered in a way that was beautiful, and the packaging was a vital part of that. So even though Vault's origins has nothing to do with the roots of a traditional packaging agency, it's always been at the core of everything that we've done.
We kind of don't look at brands from a singular output. So yes, we might get a packaging brief that comes in just for packaging, but we always think about the 360s. How does that piece of packaging show up off pack, through comms, through point of sale? What does that look like if it's going through motion? We look at brands holistically through a 360 lens, as opposed to a singular point as well.
During these years, how has your vision of package design evolved?
I think it's less about an evolution and more about coming full circle. In the early days, I don't think we distinguished between packaging design or identity design, typography, illustration, advertising, or anything really. John and I would work together to create a world, and there was no distinction between the creative process. The deeper we got into the industry, it became clear that the industry was really fragmented. And that was quite crazy to us because there's tons of agencies out there that just did one specific thing and didn't stretch. And then when we started, you didn't have people talking about brand worlds or 360-degree concepts. Vault 49 was put into these really discrete categories. And in the early days, some people only saw us as illustrators, some saw us as typographers, some considered that we only did album art. And it's really crazy to think about how the design world tries to split everybody into their roles, or at least they try to do. But I think that's the real beauty of where we're at now, that the next generation of leading packaging design studios, they're not necessarily packaging design studios. We all create these beautiful creative worlds that also happens to include packaging design, but we're equally at home bringing concepts to life in motion or in print and on billboards. The best and the most successful examples of packaging do not stand alone. Successful packaging design has evolved back to that place we all experienced as kids, and it's this expression of something bigger and more connected.
I'd also add that our packaging and design process kind of pulls directly from those early days. Right? We always wanted to push our work further. We was always seeing what's a new surface, what's a new ink we could be experimenting with as well. How did this 2D start to look in 3D? And I think that's something we've kept true to today. For example, we've done a piece of packaging for a new to world label. The actual liquid was based around whiskey and coffee and how that came together. So we got inspiration from coffee shops. And rather than just doing that design, get that inspiration and digitally creating it, we pushed it further. We said, what if we were to actually create a sign, a life-size sign? We got bored, we painted it with black chalkboard, and then we produced that sign about 8 foot tall. And then we photographed it and then shrunk it down and did a bit of treatment in there and thought about 2 different kind of printing processes. We're always looking for those opportunities to break the boundaries, to push the brief so that we can see how far we can push ourselves and see how far the packaging could go. Our packaging has always leaned into our origin story, and that was based out of craft and processes and different printing processes.
I read about the 4 principles that guide your work. Can you explain what you mean with back alley insights and street art rawness?
Vault 49 began in the back alleys of London, then we took it to the streets of New York. Initially, that really referred to the fact that we were covering the streets with graffiti. But what that means now is it's all about our connection to culture. So when we're talking about back alley insights, we're talking about taking that street level knowledge of understanding what matters and then bringing that to life. And we're no stranger to huge quant decks and pulling everything apart. But our real passion and our real focus is on more of the ethnographic side of things, of really being able to drill down into those single, pure, individual stories that you'll find at street level, and then bringing those back up through the design process and getting those big ideas that can unlock the full design world from it.
Great. And what about street art rawness?
What we're really talking about here is a mindset. It's not to do with, are we going to take a spray can to some work, or are we going to get a marker pen and put something on there? Street art rawness is a mentality of keeping focused on craft, keeping focused on authentic expression, and keeping focused on handwork. The thing that is just absolutely forbidden in our agency is to get briefed, to pull up Google, to pull up Pinterest, to pull up Instagram, wherever it is, and look to try and see what else is out there to try and get inspiration. It's just not something that we endorse at all. Street art rawness is picking up a pencil, a marker, your mouse, whatever it happens to be in your hand, and letting the work express itself through that. The same way that you would do if you were stood in front of a wall with just a spray can or a pen and you had to create and put something out there. You wouldn't be looking at the wall next to you and thinking, okay, what's another artist over there? So I'm going to do the same thing over here. That's how we began. And it's what keeps us fresh. And I think it's what really engages us with the projects that we're doing for our clients. We don't create one thing that looks like another thing that looks like another thing. There's a uniqueness and a vitality about the work.
In your packaging design project, how far does art go and where does design begin?
I think the lines are blurred, really. At the start of a brief and the start of a project, we always have the key players in the room. We have client service, we have strategy in the room. But we always make sure there's creative in the room as well. But I think where the blur starts to come is we don't dissect the different departments when we go through the stretch of a project.
One of the most enjoyable things about Vault 49 is also one of the greatest challenges that we have in terms of running an agency. And if you think about mine and John's story, we started out as artists with no commercial experience. We never worked at another design studio or another design agency. Some of our best packaging designers learned packaging at Vault 49 after having joined us as an illustrator. Some of our best strategic thinkers are artists and designers. So there is this constant blend. There's a real arc and a flow to bringing in talent, which isn't necessarily ones that you could just cherry pick from other places and bring into Vault 49. We have to really nurture them to the way that we work together.
Interesting. How would you describe an ideal Vault 49 client?
An ideal Vault 49 client is looking to shift the needle substantially. They've got a challenge. Maybe they're a leading brand, but customer is aging and they're losing some relevancy. So they need to reposition themselves for a new audience. And then we get those white space opportunities where we've got a client who comes to us and says, we've got an idea. We don't know what it's called. We might not know what it tastes like. We certainly don't know what it looks like. We're not even fully sure on who the consumer is that we should be talking to. That's where we get to bring on board the back alley insights, really find out exactly who we're talking to, what matters to them, and then be able to build all of that framework, that design process, all the way up through into these beautiful visual worlds, and then bring that to life. The right kind of client for us is, I think they're brave.
Yeah, I love the use of the word brave. The clients who are passionate about their brands, right? The ones who are passionate about what they do, the brands, their product as well. And they never want to play it safe. The clients who are willing to challenge, willing to disrupt category norms, the ones who challenge us as an agency.
Hey guys, what is your favorite current professional habit and what would you like to stop doing?
As it's going to be the same habit that is both beneficial but also challenging. So this habit is not knowing when to stop on a project, on a brief, from a business point of view. That's where it becomes a challenge. So it's a little bit chicken and egg. You want that fresh work out there. You want it to be the ones that are winning awards, that's getting noticed. But then you also want to make sure that you're constantly not going over budget as well from a business point of view.
My favorite habit for me was that I don't think I know best. I've always got an opinion if I need to have an opinion, but I really love entering into brainstorms, going into scenarios where we don't know the outcome, and just being a part of the problem-solving exercise. And I love to be wrong. It's a real privilege to be wrong and to be among people that have got ideas that are shining through. I think in terms of the habits that I am constantly trying to stop doing, it's a double-edged coin where on the one side you've got passion and expression and being really vocal and determined about something. I think it's done John and I really well over the 21 years that when we really believe something, we're unstoppable. But then the flip side of that is that passion can overflow, and sometimes it's a little bit too expressive or a bit volatile. So it's constantly trying to rein in balance between passion and direction and purpose, and then that kind of overflow of energy, which can be disruptive to an environment. So it's trying to find that right balance, because it's trying to be more even in the way in which we handle and work with all the people at Vault 49.
How do you bring out the best in creative people?
I think that's the big challenge for us. How do we bring out the best in people? How do we keep them excited? The backdrop of Vault 49, we're in New York, we're in London. So sometimes it's about us just telling the team to stop and reminding the team, look, we're in this city, go get your inspiration out on the streets. Another way we inspire the team is giving them breaks from the creativity. So seeing other ways they can express themselves, but away from the day-to-day of commercial work. So we have lots of little initiatives that we've created over the years away from the commercial work to inspire the team.
One of the key things to keeping the team inspired is letting our team step up and take the spotlight. Oftentimes when they don't want to. John's making them really gaining confidence, get out there, present to clients, take the lead. John will sometimes remove himself from meetings just to make sure that he's really empowering the people that are growing through the agency to step up and make sure that they're giving themselves in the right way. So there's a level of encouragement and there's a level of handholding, helping to guide the team, and then when to take the stabilizers off the bike, when to let people go. And I think it's that empowerment that is the key to really keeping people inspired.
Agencies are shaped by clients, and brands are shaped by consumers. But only one part of the ecosystem is diverse, and that's the consumer. Brands and their agencies need to be braver. Vault 49 is committed to encouraging cultural diversity within the design industry. What can the industry do on a structural level to encourage diversity and inclusion, taking into account that creative industries are hugely influential in society and in culture?
The SWAP is a program that helps support the next generation of young Black and Brown creatives. And it's a cultural immersion program really rooted in the idea of creativity. We've been working with high school students, university students from underserved and low-income households that identify as an ethnic minority. The key thing is we're showing up for them at an important time in their creative journey and saying to them, look, you deserve to be in the industry. Yes, there isn't enough racial diversity in our industry, especially in leadership roles as well. But we're here to show you and inspire you that there's a seat at the table for you. And hopefully that seat actually becomes a name on the door for them in the future on their journey. It's a 2-week experience. We work with Black and Brown students out of the US, and we also work with similar Black and Brown students out of the UK as well. We've partnered with Jay-Z's Sean Carter Foundation and President Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative. And they help us find the students. And I partner with a friend of mine out of the UK called Lawrence Latte as well. We really want to expose them to the wider opportunities or career opportunities. So strategists to client service, copywriters, through to the array of different design avenues and options they have for them as well.
Our whole team gets to collaborate with this. There is the sense of mentorship, there's a sense of giving back and being part of doing something that is greater than themselves.
How can clients use their power to promote diversity and inclusion in their partner agencies?
This is a question that has been top of mind for us for a long time, because it's really clear that change happens from where clients spend their money. And this is a difficult topic to bring up because so much of what has taken place over the last few years is a lot of great rhetoric, a lot of really believable desire to make substantial change. But we're one of the very few agencies that's been co-founded by a Black person. And ultimately, the way that clients can best support this as they look to try and make an impact in the design world, in the agency world, is to literally put their money behind agencies that are having the biggest impact in terms of diversifying their staff and their team, and the ones who are actually leaning more into what they say their values and priorities are.
John, in a predominantly white industry, it can be intimidating to walk into a room full of well-educated white people and present your ideas. How did you overcome imposter syndrome?
When Jonathan and I met and we started this journey as a company, we grew as designers, but we also grew as people. By not working for other agencies, we were really able to build something that represented us, who we were, where we came from. And that was our safe space. When, as a Black man, going into predominantly white rooms, and that's still the case now, I always had the support of Jonathan. So I feel like it gave me the confidence to be in those rooms and feel that my voice was important and my ideas were important. It needed to be a support system around me because unfortunately, I witnessed too many times with a lot of the students I've been working with, I see that lack of confidence, that lack of representation in the industry. So I do as much as I can to get my face out there now and to encourage them that they deserve to be in this industry as well.
John, I'm going to play a role of interviewer here for a second as well. I've got a follow-up question for you. We talk about imposter syndrome, and I've been in all those rooms where you're the only Black face in the room. How much of the imposter syndrome would you credit to coming from a working class background and not having exposure to the industry on any level? And how much of it would be being the Black face in the room? Is there a way that you've been able to put your finger on what the greatest challenge was back in those early days?
Back in the early days, when in the infancy of Vault 49, it was Jonathan and I. So Jonathan and I played client service, we played strategists, we played creatives. So in those rooms, it was always Jonathan and I, and both of us come from working class backgrounds. So having that direct support, someone who's become a best friend to me and a part of my family, having that person in the room to me always gave me the confidence. It's funny, the imposter syndrome came when the agency grew, when we had to divide roles a bit more. And now I didn't have my number two next to me in that room. And I think that's when it went from my working class background to also adding another layer of, oh, actually, I'm also the only Black person in this room. So I found myself second guessing my ideas and second guessing, should I respond to that or should I challenge that from another agency in the room or another person in the room or the client in the room as well? That sense of confidence came from step and repeat. I often found myself like, should I say something? This is what I really think about it. And then someone else beats me to it and says what I'm thinking. I'm like, so that was like, all right, next time I'm going to make sure I say it. And if it's right or wrong, I actually found through trial and error, even if my idea was wrong or it wasn't the right thing to say, it didn't matter as much and people weren't reacting negatively to it.
What advice would you give to agencies and brands looking to create more diverse and inclusive workplace? And what steps can they take to make this a reality?
The reality is that right now, there aren't enough people from diverse backgrounds in our industry for everybody to have a representative team based on all the different diversities that exist in the market and exist for our clients. So everything has to be forward-looking. The real effort and investment has to be put into people from diverse and underrepresented backgrounds who are not yet in the industry and who have not yet even considered entering the industry. The challenge has to be to go into the schools, go into the colleges, but it's not the universities. What you need to do is get into the 16 to 18-year-old scenario where you've got kids who are really deciding what they want to do with their lives and they're trying to figure out what their future could look like. That's where the change needs to happen. There's a real values focus for us because we're not going to see the benefit for many years to come, but we believe we've got an opportunity to really take a stand on this one. And this is where we're seeing a lot of brave clients doing the same thing in going off of their balance books, putting in place initiatives that will survive them by many years and will really make a fundamental change to not just the design community, but to the kind of world we live in on the whole.
It's complicated. I often describe it as a bowl of noodles that is laced between each other. And we need to just start picking out those noodles one by one layer by layer. And that's going to take some time. What's key is to make sure that this isn't a trend. This is actually a strong movement until we're not having these conversations about diversity anymore. And I'm, as a Black kind of co-founder and a leader in the industry, I'm not being asked to go to a talk or to talk about diversity and stuff. I'm actually being asked to talk because of the work we've done at Vault.9, what we've achieved, the brands we work for. I know the role I need to play as a Black founder and a Black leader in the industry, but I can't wait to that moment that I'm being invited to a conference or invited to judge on awards for the merit of the work I've done and not because of the color of my skin.
You have recently been selected as the Pentawards jury co-president. What would be your focus on this role?
I think part of it's energy. I talked about my personality and my character earlier, being the cheeky chap. I think a great team at the Pentawards, Adam and the crew, and Jen saw that in me, that sense of energy. But they also appreciated and understood the challenge that they have internally as well, and the industry has, and having that sense of representation as well. Bringing a bit more diverse, and I think they're doing a great job. We've seen the jury at the Pentawards go from 10, maybe 5 years ago through to the 50 global people as well. And I love joining those roundtable Zoom calls with the jury and being in person judging with them as well, because people from all over the world, different languages, different experiences as well, whether that's through design or whether that's through cuisine as well. And all those conversations come up, and that's what excites me. And I feel like that sense of representation alongside Chloe as a female creative leader and me as a Black male creative leader as well, I feel like we've really come together to showcase the benefits of diversity through gender and through race.
Cool. Now I propose we play a game. As you know, a ping pong table is a must in many creative studios. I will make you a series of brief questions and you have to choose one or another concept. And if you want, you can explain why you choose it. Are you ready for BRANDERMAN ping pong?
Think so.
Yes, I'm born ready. Bring it.
I am a designer or I am a consultant?
I can't bear the word consultant. Designer.
Definitely designer.
Close brief or blue sky brief?
Ooh, on this today I'm going to say blue sky.
I'm going to switch it then. I'm going to go closed brief, because what I want with a closed brief is a really specific objective. Because when you've got a specific objective, then you can go wild in how you approach it.
Creative strategist or strategic designer?
Both. Can't choose between the two. You want your creatives to be strategic thinkers, and you want your strategists to be able to lean into the creative. If you've got two people sat on either sides of a wall, it's not working. They need to be sat at the same desk, kicking each other under the table.
How could I answer that question any better than Jonathan there?
No. A creation project or a redesign project?
I'm going to go with a new to world creative project. And my reason to be is the challenge I find working with some of the bigger brands is, especially when we're talking about sustainability. When you think about a new to world, it's a bit easier. There's less red tape. You're normally speaking to the founders or the CEOs of the company. You're dealing direct with them. And you can really plant that seed and inspire them to think about diversity, think about sustainability and materials right from the bat as well. So I enjoy working with startup brands because you can tick those boxes a lot earlier in the process than you can with bigger brands.
I'm going to bat that ball back at you. And I'm going to say redesign process. We've just done the whole rebrand, redesign, new packaging, new brand world for Propel. It's a water brand here in the US. And this is an incredibly successful. And this is where we get to really prove the impact of our work. With a redesign, you're taking something that is already in market to varying degrees of success. You're then representing it and saying, look at the impact that design is having on this one. It's not how creative the work is. It's not whether it wins awards or anything else. It's has our work had a meaningful commercial impact on what our clients have briefed us to do. And on a redesign project, you get to look at that and you get to showcase to the clients the impact of design.
Focus groups or gut feelings?
Focus groups, because we want to deliver results, right? If it's gut feeling, sometimes you're not necessarily always thinking about your consumer.
The best ideas come from gut feeling, and those gut feelings will come from insights. So if we take our back alley insights process, they're one-on-one stories, and you're listening to these narratives and you're seizing on something which just sounds really prescient, really important, and you're getting a gut feeling from that. And from that gut feeling, you then create these brand worlds, these ideas, these territories. And from that, you create the designs and concepts that you'll take into the focus groups. So they really work hand in hand. The key for it is not to get lost in layers and layers of groups, getting so complex that you can actually lose any meaningful benefit from them.
I think Jonathan's cheating in this game. He keeps blending all his answers together.
Yeah, I'm doing. If you go first, I get to take what you said. You're losing this ping pong game.
Mass market or premium market?
Premium. I'm going to be subjective here. I feel like the premium, it allows you to push some printing techniques. It allows you to create something that could be really quite beautiful as an end product in hand.
Yeah. Can you guess what I'm going to do, John?
You're going to blend them together, aren't you?
I'm going to blend them bad boys together. Yeah, I'm drawn to think about the work that we're doing with Guinness. We've got the privilege over the last couple of years of being the global agency for design for Guinness. This is the world's leading beer brand by brand recognition. They lean so heavily into premium experiences, into a premium space, whilst also having a very accessible product on shelf. So there are brands out there where you really do get to play the best of both worlds. And Guinness is one of those shining examples of a brand where you can bring together beautiful printing techniques, immersive brand experiences, but you're doing it in a way which is reaching tremendous mass in a truly global brand. There's a beautiful opportunity to combine the two of them.
Nice. Label design or bottle design?
I've got to go with the label design simply because I enjoy working so much with our partners who bring together the structural design, and we get to benefit from all those experience. But that is a talent that I just look at in such huge admiration.
Great. A packaging of another agency that you would have liked to have designed?
I'm going to big up one of your other podcast contributors that you've had on. I love most of the things that Stranger & Stranger do. So I'm not going to pick out a single thing because I could look through their portfolio and just say, I would love to have designed that and that and that and that.
I'm going to go with the Sprite redesign. That's one of my favorite ones as of late. I think it was just a real kind of beautiful way of refreshing the equities, of being a little bit more proud with how it's being used as well. I believe this was done by Turner Duckworth. A benefit is we actually hired not too long ago the designer actually behind that, the craft, the typography, and the design as well. So now they're in-house with us, which is great as well. So, but yeah, I really love that Sprite piece of packaging.
So that's a backhanded way of saying it's us then, John.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks.
Leading designers or continuing to design all your life?
Oh, that's a good one. Jonathan and I had so much pleasure in the beginning because we played all the roles within the company until we hired better people within probably all of our roles. The pleasure came from us seeing our work out in the world as well as designers, actually crafting it as well. But that shifted over the years. And that pleasure came about seeing other people win and other people getting excited about seeing the work that they had produced and crafted, or they were the big idea behind it, and them seeing their work come to life on shelf and people buying it. But I'm starting to come back to, we're 21 years deep in this, and I'm starting to miss those moments of getting the hands dirty and getting involved in the craft as well. But I think it's starting to come full circle again for me. What's that like for you, Jonathan?
Yeah, for me, my fixation from way back when was always Warhol's factory. I love that. I mean, that, John, you and I spoke about it so much. It's in our own way. It's what we're trying to create with Vault 49, where we've created the environment, we've created the atmosphere, we've created the culture of this melting pot where amazing things happen. So my greatest privilege is to help create the environment and then to sit back and watch other people bring it to life. So whatever the answer is, it's buried in there somewhere.
a collaboration with another creative or agency that you would like to do?
I'm going to rewrite the question a little bit and not think about it through necessarily creativity within branding and packaging, but I'm going to look at an adjacent creative space. And I'm going to go with collaborating with a puppet designer as well.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a weird one. I'm really intrigued about how those two worlds can come together. And I don't think I've really seen that sense of collaboration before.
Yeah, for me, it's going to go outside of our industry a little bit. And Roman and Williams, they would be right up there in terms of their level of sophistication, their sense of design and sensibility within architecture and these beautiful crafted objects. I want to be able to collaborate to make things that people will pick up in 100 years' time and just immerse themselves in the passion and craft that went into creating these individual objects rather than the day-to-day mass consumerism. So there's a real joy to be found in creating things that have longevity.
Great. And finally, great designers are born or great designers are made?
Oh, great designers are definitely made because circumstances, my experiences, and my drive have allowed me to be made into a successful designer. But there are many more talented creatives who are born.
Yeah, I'm fully aligned with that. Actually, this is one we're on the same side of the table.
Great. Is there anything on your radar that has the potential to revolutionize our industry? How do you imagine the term package design will evolve?
For me, it's hard not to ignore AI. And there's lots of internal conversations of how we embrace this new technology. I often liken it to when I was probably around the birth of Photoshop as well, speaking to teachers and people who are older than me as well, and how kind of disruptive they felt Photoshop was and how it was going to really disrupt the industry in a bad and negative way. And no, it really complemented it. Opening our minds a little bit more to what AI really is. It's very much in its kind of infancy, but seeing how it can complement what you do in the future of it, I'm quite excited by it.
For me, I think the evolution of our industry is going to come in many ways from evolutions in supply chain and logistics and very physical solutions. If one of the most upsetting things for me on an individual level is when you get so much waste and excessive packaging. Well, you get something from Amazon and it's a box inside a box inside a box to get delivered a toothbrush. So this isn't something which is new news that's coming our way. But I think with the speed at which this is being delivered and going to be kind of almost mandated and regulated is something that I'm quite excited for, because there's the amount of someone who appreciates recycling and composting and everything else. I'm constantly distraught at the amount of waste that I'm having to throw out.
If you could just take a pill and learn any subject, anything, what would it be?
If I could take a pill and if I could have all of the insight and the wisdom and the knowledge that Joseph Campbell has, his background and experience in anthropology and mythology, if I could take a pill and absorb all of that insight and have that within me, God, the world would be a very exciting and even more colorful place than it already is.
I've always likened music and the process of music and that sense of creativity to design. I think there's a lot of parallels there. And probably one of my favorite artists is Miles Davis. And if I could take a pill that would put me back in that time of the Harlem Renaissance period where all of that jazz was all coming together and I could be a part of that experience, I would love to, I would cut off my arm to experience that. You don't even give me a pill, I'll donate my arm.
What is the most important thing on your to-do list for your professional life? What is your next adventure?
For me, we talked about the swap. The swap is something that could really grow. It's something that excites me personally. I feel like there's a great opportunity to grow this. And then closely followed up secondly on that list, I've got a young daughter who is 13 and a son who is 1. But spending more time exposing them to creativity and the wonderful world that we all get to work within.
If I look back at the origins of Vault, our reason to exist at the beginning was very simple. We were having great fun and we wanted it to continue. And it was like, okay, what do we do next? What do we do next? What do we do next? But to be candid, like running the agency during the pandemic was really challenging. I had to look back and recognize that period of time really took its toll on me individually. And I lost a little bit of my playfulness and I lost a little bit of my lightness of being in a way. So when I think about where that leads me, I think my next adventure, both professional and personal, is anchoring myself firmly in playfulness. And that means for me that I am committed to going out dancing every week, to music, to mindfulness and wellness, and just to being generally a little bit more silly. I really want to help make Vault 49 an even more playful place to be. So yeah, my next professional adventure is to become more playful, more carefree, maybe a bit more ridiculous, but I consider myself very lucky in having John as my friend and business partner. I have somebody around me who is utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, you should swap labels.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. Mine will be designed better.
I'm not sure we want to witness these dance shapes on the dance floor as well, but it might be quite abstract.
I got moves, JG. You never know.
Jonathan, thanks for speaking up, for challenging us to make sure that more diverse experiences are captured when briefing a design project, and for showing us that diversity is not a burden to be carried. It's a huge opportunity to highlight. Cheers. Gracias.
Cheers.
Gracias, amigo.
I hope you have enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. You can check the episode notes for all the relevant links. I also invite you to follow me on Instagram and on my website, branderman.design. Follow the podcast in your favorite app so you don't miss the next episode of Branderman, the podcast where we try to uncover how to make a positive impact on consumers, the market, and society through package design.